and welcome back to Journey Through Preschool with me, Erin. Today we're going to be going over another whole brain strategy as mentioned in The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson. We've already discussed the right and left hemispheres of the brain, but today we're going to really talk about the upstairs and the downstairs of the brain. We're going to think about it as if we're thinking about a house. Now we want to look at the brain from top to bottom. The downstairs brain includes the brainstem and is part of the limbic system, and the downstairs brain is home to the amygdala, which is the watchdog of our brains. The amygdala covers all of our basic functions. It's what causes you to, if you're in the car, I know I do this 1,000 times. If I'm in the car and I have to hit the brakes really fast, my arm instinctively goes to the passenger side, even if no one's there, just to protect who's next to me. That's my amygdala causing my automatic safety response to something that I thought was fearful or that was going to be dangerous. Your amygdala is, what causes you to react in anger very quickly or in fear very quickly. It is where our most primitive function is from infancy, from brain development. It's the first thing that develops in your brain. So basically, basic necessities are met in the downstairs brain. Now we're going to go upstairs. The upstairs brain is completely different. The upstairs brain is sophisticated. It's what allows us to see our world more clearly, allows us to see things, more details in our world. That area of our brain is located right here. It's right behind our forehead. What's right behind your forehead is called the middle prefrontal cortex. Unlike the basic downstairs brain, right, unlike meeting the basic necessities, the upstairs brain is evolved and can give you a more sophisticated look at your world. You might imagine a light-filled library upstairs where you can see everything beautifully, everything is clear, it's a library, it's full of information, it's very sophisticated in its thinking, it's very sophisticated in its ability to plan, make sound decisions, and, control emotions in the body. The upstairs brain is highly sophisticated in its way of thinking, imagining, all of those things. Because of its sophistication and complexity, it is responsible for producing many of the characteristics we want our children to have. However, the upstairs brain for a child is not fully developed and is completely under construction, especially in the ages of preschool. Again, the upstairs brain, the prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead, is the last thing to develop, basically. It doesn't fully finish developing until you're almost 30 years old. And so our children have a very difficult time using this upstairs brain, using their prefrontal cortex. When a child's upstairs brain is working well, she or he can regulate emotions, consider consequences, think before acting, and consider how other people feel. It gives them that ability to have empathy. It gives them the ability to acknowledge their own feelings. When we are stuck in our downstairs brain, that amygdala is lighting up, right? And we don't have access to our prefrontal cortex at the age of 3 and 4 years old. So it's our job as the parents to know the expectations and know that their brains, although they're under construction and they're being worked on still, they physically do not have the capacity to use their upstairs brain when they are stuck in the downstairs. And we'll talk about the two different tantrums that can be experienced, an upstairs tantrum versus a downstairs tantrum. So my main point in this, in talking about the development and expectations as caregivers, is to understand that your child's upstairs brain is a work in progress. So talking about the downstairs brain, we mainly want to talk about our amygdala. So our amygdala is right here. Pretend your thumb is the amygdala in the downstairs brain. Okay? Our amygdala, again, like I said in the beginning, is the watchdog of our brains. The amygdala's job is to quickly process and express emotion, specifically anger and fear. When our amygdala senses danger or anger, it can completely overtake and kidnap, essentially, the upstairs brain and be stuck in the downstairs brain, stuck in that emotion, stuck in the anger, stuck in the fear. And because of this, we are not A child is not able to think before they react when they're stuck with their amygdala firing up all the time. Whenever the amygdala senses fear or anger and the child has that and they get stuck in the downstairs brain, it's our job to go back to the whole brain strategy number 1, which is connect and redirect. We really want to connect. When they're in a downstairs tantrum, that means that they are stuck down there and they don't have access to their upstairs brain any longer. It's our job to connect with them, help them, and regulate with them in order to redirect them to integrate and use their upstairs brain at the same time. And for preschool students, this can be very hard. We can see our students get stuck in the downstairs brain for up to 30 minutes sometimes because it is so difficult for them to release and regulate their emotions that they are feeling. So connection, again, so important. You're feeling sad right now. I see that. It's very disappointing we couldn't get the toy we wanted. Or I had a student a couple of weeks ago, he wanted to bring a little whale out into the playground and the whale had to stay inside. Well, he got very angry, very upset, and he was screaming. I mean, just letting it all out. And I really had to connect with him in that moment. And how I did that was provide deep pressure, right? He came in for squeezes, he came in for a hug, and we sat there while he cried. We sat there together and we talked about it. I reiterated for him, yeah, whale has to stay inside, but we're outside playing on the playground. And that redirection kind of looked like, after about 5 to 6 minutes of him screaming in my arms, the redirection really looked like me retelling the story and saying, oh, I'm so sorry, you're so disappointed, but there's a ball we can play with. Do you want the ball? And he, wiped his tears. He felt he was starting to regulate, feel a little better. And then he got up and he was fine and he went and played with the ball. So it's all about that connection. Like, we really want to connect with that amygdala, calm it down for them, and then redirect them to use their upstairs brain and say, there are options. I can be flexible. Let me go play with this ball. It's important to note that not only is our upstairs brain under construction, but it is inaccessible to a student or to a child who is downstairs and stuck down there. So just knowing this and adjusting our expectations can help us understand and see that our kids are often doing the best they can with the brain that they have. A quote that I really love from Ross Greene from another book called The Explosive Child is that kids can do well if they can. And if they're stuck in the downstairs brain because they're having an emotional tantrum, they can't do well. And it's our job as their caregiver, as their parent, as their teacher, whoever, to really help them through these moments because they physically cannot do it without co-regulation. So I mentioned earlier an upstairs tantrum versus a downstairs tantrum. An upstairs tantrum is when a child decides to throw a tantrum. They are using their upstairs brain to decide that they want something and that they are going to throw themselves on the floor. They're going to just whine and cry over something that they want, something that they couldn't have, something like that. But they're using their upstairs brain to challenge the caregiver, or sometimes I don't like to say manipulate, but manipulate the caregiver in a sense. This is when a child makes the conscious choice to act out. This is when non-negotiables come up. Right, we never want to, as a caregiver or parent, there are going to be non-negotiables that come up. So in this instance, this is when we need using our firm parent or teacher voice and saying, I'm so sorry you can't have that right now, but the way you're acting is not how we get things. So really pulling them out of that, because in that moment, they're not stuck or anything. They're consciously using the decision to use their upstairs brain to get what they want. The upstairs tantrum calls for firm boundaries and a clear discussion about the inappropriate behavior and what appropriate behavior should look like, coming up with a different way or a better way to ask for what they needed or what they wanted. So imagine you're in a Walmart or a store or a Target and your child wants some slippers. And they are screaming, I want the slippers, I want them now, you give them to me now, right? They're on the floor, they're freaking out. Okay, this is when they're using their upstairs brain. This is an upstairs tantrum. And you want to respond with, I understand that you're excited about those slippers, but I don't like the way you're acting. If you don't stop now, you will not get the slippers. So having that firm tone with them, still nurturing but firm, and relaying the expectation and relaying the consequence that's going to happen. It's so important to follow through on these consequences as well. Children need to know that when they make or when they have inappropriate behavior, that consequences do follow those behaviors. And consequences follow positive behaviors as well. And I think that's an important lesson for students and children to learn. A downstairs tantrum is completely different. A child becomes so upset that they are no longer able to use their upstairs brain. This is when a child has a fear or anger response caused by the amygdala being lit up. And when this happens, it's our job to connect and redirect with them, provide a nurturing and calming environment, and really help them integrate and use their upstairs brain. Because remember, when they're in that state of a downstairs tantrum, their upstairs brain is not accessible to them. A good question to ask yourself, and this goes into the whole brain strategy number 3, which is engage, don't enrage. And by doing this, you can ask yourself, you can say, are you engaging the upstairs brain or are you triggering the downstairs brain when you talk to a kiddo, right? An example would look like, say your kid is in the back seat and they say, I hate you, Mom. And your response is, that is not okay to say. Don't you ever say that again. That is not nice. That is enraging for a child, right? Because in that moment, they're angry at you or they're saying, I hate you for a purpose, right? They're wanting to release or express emotion. And in that response that the parent gave, the parent was not acknowledging any emotion that the child was having. They were saying, do not say that again. They were not, I'll say it again, they were not acknowledging the child's emotion that they were feeling in the moment. That is enraging. Whenever you're upset, whenever an adult is upset, whenever I'm upset, all I want is validation. All I want is acknowledgement. And when a parent completely disregards how that person is or how the child is feeling because of how they personally took whatever the child said, that then starts a power struggle. Well, it could start a power struggle, and it also enrages the child because you're not acknowledging how they feel. Or engaging the upstairs brain could look like the child starting off with, I hate you, Mom. And then the mother is saying, wow, you're really mad right now. Child might say, yeah, I hate you. And then the mom might say, is it because I didn't get you the necklace that you wanted? And then the child will say, yes, you're so mean, right? They'll follow through. They're still angry, but you're building that conversation with you. You're talking it out with them. So the parent might say, well, that necklace wasn't for sale. It's okay if you want to keep being mad, but if you'd rather, we can be problem solvers and talk about what else we can do to make you feel better. And then the child might say, well, how do we do that? Then the child that right there is the moment when they integrate that upstairs brain. When the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain are working together. You'll see this when the child starts to ask questions. They'll say, well, how do we do that? Or you can ask your child, well, what is something you think we can do? Right? Getting them to think about the situation rather than sitting in the fear, rather than sitting in the anger, right? Every time we say, convince me, or let's come up with a solution that works for both of us, we give our child the chance to practice problem solving and good decision making, and we're also integrating the upstairs brain with the downstairs brain. And when that integration happens, that's when your child is the most healthy. That's when they are the most regulated, is when the upstairs brain is working with the downstairs brain to regulate emotion and think and problem solve and make sound decisions. Well, I hope that you were able to take something really good from this video. I appreciate everyone who's been watching my videos. Please let me know if these are helpful. Let me know if there's anything you would like me to talk more about. But until then, continue to validate, encourage, and support. Thanks.